Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever considered that a classic piece of literature might hide, profound messages, not just in its words, but in its actual design? Today, we're doing a deep dive into the incredible life and work of Jose Rizal. We're drawing insights from a whole collection of sources that really shine a light on his journey, his education, and of course, his groundbreaking novel, Noli Me Tangere.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is how these sources piece together such a complete picture. You see everything from his early um, academic challenges and successes right through his really pivotal time abroad
Hmm.
and the rise of the propaganda movement leading up to this powerful visual language he wove into his masterpiece, something people often miss.
Right. So, our mission here is to pull out those essential nuggets of knowledge, help you uncover some surprising facts, maybe, and connect the dots of what was truly a revolutionary mind. Get ready for some aha moments because there's definitely more to Rizal than you might think. Let's begin right at the start. Rizal's academic journey. Now, you might assume a genius like Rizal would just sail through, right? But our sources show this interesting initial hurdle, sort of foreshadowing, maybe.
Indeed. Yeah, when he first tried to get into the Ateneo Municipal de Manila, which was run by Spanish Jesuits, then he was actually refused admission at first.
Refused. Why?
Well, the records say he registered late, and he's also seen as sickly and maybe a bit small for his age. It seems minor, but it kind of highlights a system that could be pretty arbitrary even then. A hint of the bigger issues to come.
Mm. But he did get in. How?
Right. That's where Manuel Zayres Burgos comes in. He interceded for Rizal. And the significant thing here, Manuel was the nephew of one of the martyred Gomburza priests.
Ah, okay. So that connection is there right from the start, linking his personal journey to that nationalist spark. So what was Ateneo actually like for him once he was in?
Well, the Jesuit system there
Uh-huh.
was quite advanced for the time, more liberal than other colleges. His first professor was Father Jose Beck. And even though they initially put him at the bottom of the class, Rizal just soared, became emperor, top student by the end of the first month.
Wow.
Yeah. He won a medal in Latin, wrote poetry, even did sculpture. He graduated bachelor in artes with sobresaliente outstanding marks, top honors, and everything. He even took extra private lessons at Santa Isabel College just to polish his Spanish even further.
Okay, so he clearly thrived at Ateneo, which I guess begs the question, did that continue when he moved to the University of Santo Tomas? Was it a similar experience or?
Yeah, right. And why transfer in the first place? That's a really key question. After a year studying philosophy and letters, he switched to the medical course. Now, partly this was on the advice of Father Pablo Ramon, the Ateneo rector,
Hmm.
but crucially, his main motivation was wanting to cure his mother's failing eyesight. That was a huge driver for him. And while he was still technically connected to Ateneo, he finished a surveying course there too, but did get the title immediately because he was only 17,
Mm.
underage.
Right. So medicine it was, and his time at UST, as successful as Ateneo?
Not really, no. He did have some literary wins, first prize for his poem A la Juventud Filipina, another for El Consejo de los Dioses.
Mhm.
Although that second one didn't go down well with the Spanish community in Manila, they disapproved.
Mm.
But overall, he was pretty unhappy at UST. He found the Dominican professors hostile, faced racial discrimination, Filipinos being treated differently by the Spaniards, and he felt the teaching methods were just obsolete, repressive even. So after 4 years of that, a stark contrast to Ateneo, he decided, right, I need to study elsewhere. He set his sights on Spain.
So after facing those kinds of challenges, that stifling atmosphere in Manila, he makes this huge decision to leave the Philippines. But you mentioned he left in secret. How did that work?
Yeah, he slipped away quietly in 1882. It was part of this secret pact he had with his older brother, Paciano. Paciano was his rock, really.
Yeah.
Funded the trip, sent him money regularly while he was abroad. And the journey itself was quite something. Stopovers in Singapore, Colombo in Sri Lanka, Egypt, Naples, France, before he finally landed in Barcelona.
That's a serious trip for that era. Did those experiences, those early observations abroad, start shaping his thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Transformative. In Singapore, for instance, he saw such a contrast with the Philippines. People seemed more carefree. Citizens' rights were respected. The authorities weren't abusive. You can definitely connect those dots. Seeing different ways society could function, different levels of freedom, it undoubtedly fed into his ideas about what could be possible back home. It gave him a real-world example.
And once he settled in Spain, what was he doing? Beyond the formal studies, I mean.
He was networking, basically. Met up often with his old Ateneo schoolmates, building that community of Filipinos abroad. He started writing articles, sending them back to a newspaper in Manila, including El Amor Patrio, or a really patriotic piece. He was also building his personal library, really immersing himself in ideas. And this is fascinating books like Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, about slavery, and Eugene Sue's The Wandering Jew, critiquing intolerance. Those became direct inspirations. They really pushed him to start drafting his own book.
Ah, the seeds of Noli.
Exactly. He also joined the Freemasons around this time. He was drawn to their ideals, courage, reason, brotherhood, all while drafting the novel and learning more languages. He was incredibly busy.
And this intense period leads to Noli Me Tangere. Who else was involved? Who helped actually bring this critical book into the world?
Well, another influence was Dr. Fyodor Jagor's book on the Philippines. It emphasized the potential of the islands, which reinforced Rizal's belief that education and reform were the path forward. But crucially, the funding came from Dr. Maximo Viola. He financed the printing of Noli Me Tangere in 1887, paid for the first 2,000 copies.
That's significant support.
Huge! And these copies weren't just for friends in Spain. Some were smuggled back to the Philippines. They even reached the Governor General and the Archbishop of Manila. You can imagine the reaction.
Kindly imagine.
And Viola also traveled with Rizal to Austria. That's where Rizal finally met Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt in person. They'd been corresponding for years, exchanging letters, books. Rizal really valued Blumentritt as an advisor. They'd even discussed translating parts of the Noli into German. So this network, this support system, was absolutely vital.
Okay, so with Noli Me Tangere out there making waves, it naturally feeds into this wider call for change, the propaganda movement. But maybe first, let's clarify that word. Propaganda has such a different ring to it today.
That's a really good point, yeah. Back then, propaganda basically just meant spreading information to support a cause. Simple as that. Today, we often think of it as manipulation, maybe false claims, especially in politics. But historically, any campaign aimed at persuading people, pamphlets, articles, speeches, could be called propaganda. In this context, it was about informing Spain, persuading them about the needs of the Philippines.
Right, making their case. So how did Rizal fit into this propaganda movement as it was taking shape?
Well, when Rizal got to Spain in 1882, he wasn't the first. There were already other Filipino students there, people like Pedro Paterno, Gregorio Santiago, who were active nationalists. So there was already this atmosphere of activism, mostly student-led. It exposed Rizal directly to liberal ideas and this key concept of assimilation, the idea that the Philippines should become a proper province of Spain, not just a colony, and get equal rights.
Okay.
And he jumped right in, contributing to Diario Tagalog, that bilingual newspaper, alongside figures like Marcelo H. del Pilar.
And this whole movement eventually found its main platform, its loudest voice, in La Solidaridad.
Precisely. La Solidaridad wasn't just a newspaper. It was the main publication for this organization of Filipino liberals who were exiled, mostly in Spain. Its primary goal was to make Spain aware of what the colony needed, the reforms that were necessary. Rizal was a major contributor, very active, and the paper consistently argued for the Philippines becoming a province, pushing for representation, fair treatment.
What were some of his standout pieces for La Solidaridad, the ones that really made an impact?
Oh, several really important ones. There's the Letter to the Young Women of Malolos, published in February 1889, a powerful argument for women's education, pushing back against the fire's control. Then there's the Philippines, a century hence. Quite remarkable. He basically made this forecast, analyzing trends and predicting the future of the Philippines under Spanish rule, or perhaps without it.
A bold move.
Very. And another key one from 1890 was the indolence of the Filipino. He systematically argued that any perceived laziness wasn't inherent, but a direct result of Spanish misrule and the lack of opportunity, turning the colonial stereotype on its head.
Okay, let's zoom in on the novel itself, Noli Me Tangere. Our sources give us some specifics. When exactly was it written and published?
Right. The first half was written in Madrid between 1884 and 1885. Then he finished the second half in Berlin, Germany, and was published there in 1887. The original manuscript had 63 chapters, about 480 pages. But interestingly enough, Rizal actually had to cut some chapters out just to make the printing costs more manageable. Shows you the practical challenges he faced.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond just the facts of publication, the story itself, Noli, was this living indictment of the society. It wasn't just abstract themes. You had these characters like Ibarra, Maria Clara, Padre Damaso. How did the narrative hit home? How did it portray those social realities?
Oh, powerfully. The novel is just brilliant at showing all the different sides of colonial life and how people reacted. You have Padre Damaso, who's the embodiment of the abusive, corrupt friar power. Then there's Crisostomo Ibarra, representing the educated Filipino, wanting peaceful reform but constantly blocked. And Maria Clara, Tragically, she often symbolizes the Philippines itself,
Mhm.
pure, beautiful, but ultimately victimized by the system.
Hmm.
The book just lays bare things like the hypocrisy of the elite, the social climbing, but also deep family loyalty, and the incredible self-sacrifice required if you dared to question things. It really held up a mirror to society.
And it's that mirror, that raw truth, that he seemingly wanted to reflect visually, too. Which brings us to something I find incredibly fascinating from the sources. Rizal personally designed the cover for Noli Tangere. This wasn't just decoration, was it? It's packed with symbolism, a visual manifesto almost.
Absolutely. It's a stroke of genius, really. The cover isn't just aesthetics, it's loaded with symbols that directly depict the social conditions in the Philippines at the time he wrote it. They're like a visual summary of the novel's core arguments, his critique, a masterpiece of communication.
Okay, let's break some of these down for you, our listener, because appreciating these symbols really deepens your understanding of Rizal's vision, how he layered meaning into the book's very appearance. Let's start at the top. The silhouette of a Filipina. What's that about?
Right, that silhouette. It's widely believed to be Maria Clara, obviously a key character, but it also represents something bigger. Inang Bayan, the motherland herself. So it symbolizes the nation's plight, its suffering, but also Rizal's deep love and devotion to it, which is, the driving force behind the novel. It sets the emotional tone immediately.
Okay. And below that, the pomelo blossoms and laurel leaves. They look quite delicate.
They are, but they carry weight. They stand for faith, honor, fidelity virtues. Rizal saw as essential Filipino traits, and pomelos, historically, were used in cleansing rituals, to scent the air during prayers. So there's a cultural, even spiritual layer there, too.
And the crucifix cross, very prominent. How's he using that symbol?
It's quite layered, maybe even ironic. On the surface, yes, it's the Catholic faith, its dominance over indigenous beliefs. But Rizal subtly uses it to point towards the suffering, the death Filipinos endured under the banner of that faith. It hints at the hypocrisy, the pain it caused, not just salvation.
Interesting. Then there's a burning torch. Looks like an Olympic torch.
Yeah, that's the reference. It symbolizes the awakening of Filipino consciousness, enlightenment, a call to see the truth. And quite literally, it sheds light on the text of the manuscript, suggesting the novel itself is illuminating things.
Makes sense. What about the bamboo stalks? They look strong.
Exactly. Resilience. That's the core idea. They represent the Filipino spirit. Bamboo bends in the storm, but it doesn't break easily. Despite all the suffering, the oppression Filipinos endure, they can stand tall.
And Rizal's signature, it's right there on the cover, more than just authorship.
Definitely more.
Okay.
Placing his signature there is like saying, I saw this, I witnessed this. It adds his personal testimony to the critique. It makes it authentic, not just an abstract story. He's bearing witness.
Okay. There's also a single sunflower. What's the thinking there?
Sunflowers often symbolize new beginnings, happiness, but this one seems to be bowing its head. So maybe it suggests humility, or perhaps a yearning for change, looking for a different sun to turn towards, away from the oppressive regime. It's a bit ambiguous, perhaps intentionally.
All right, let's talk about some of the more direct symbols of oppression. We see a chain, a whip and flogs, disciplina, the helmet of a guardia civil, even shoes. How do these work together?
These are pretty unambiguous. The chain is stark. Slavery, imprisonment, the lack of freedom. The whip and the flogs directly point to the physical cruelty of the Spaniards and the friars, the abuses detailed in the novel. The flogs also reference self-flagellation, a form of religious extremism he critiqued. The helmet, that's the Guardia Civil, the military police force, symbolizing their arrogance, their authority, their oppressive presence. And the shoes seems mundane, but they represent the friars' wealth, their influence, their footprints are all over the place, walking over the people, dictating everything.
And maybe the most visually disturbing element, the hairy legs. Almost like wolf legs. That feels incredibly pointed.
It really is visceral, isn't it? It's that classic wolf in sheep's clothing idea. He's using it to symbolize the friars, hiding their predatory nature, their greed, their true character behind their religious robes. It's deliberately shocking, meant to expose what he saw as hidden corruption. So if you step back and look all these symbols together, Rizal basically created this visual summary, this manifesto. He used everyday objects, religious symbols, elements of nature, all to critique the society he lived in. It adds this whole other layer of meaning right there on the cover before you even read a word. It's brilliant symbolic communication.
So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you, our listener? We've covered quite a bit of ground here, from Rizal's early academic struggles and triumphs, his eye-opening travels abroad, the whole strategic fight for reform with the propaganda movement, and finally, digging into the incredible depth of Noli me Tangere. Not just the story, but the book as a physical object, a powerful symbol in itself, especially that cover.
Yeah, these sources really drive home that Rizal wasn't just a novelist. He was such a keen observer, a deep thinker, a scholar, and just a master communicator. He understood that knowledge isn't just abstract. It's valuable when you understand it, when you can apply it, when you can communicate it. He managed to distill these really complex critiques of society into both a gripping story and this incredibly dense visual design.
It really has highlighted how one person, armed with knowledge, a clear vision, and just this amazing talent for communication can make such a profound mark on history. And it leaves you thinking, if Rizal packed that much meaning into the symbols on his book cover back then, what subtle visual cues are around us today in advertising, in media, in design? What unspoken messages might they be sending about our own society, our culture, power? Definitely something to